So what if something significant were to go wrong in your life tonight? Maybe your car breaks down, there's a family crisis, or maybe even someone takes really sick. Who are you able to call at 2 a.m. in the morning? And I'm not talking about someone who's going to text back tomorrow. I'm talking about a guy who's actually going to show up for you. And for a surprising number of men, that person doesn't exist. And I think this creates a quiet problem that a lot of us never really talk about. So in this video today, I want to look at three things. Number one, why entertainment and information don't replace brotherhood. Number two, why marriage doesn't replace it either. And three, what real male friendship actually requires of us. Because I have sat with enough men over the years in work and in social life and even in my counselling practice to understand that what I'm going to talk about today is not theory, it's actual practice. And if it lands, you may recognize something in your own life that you actually find rather uncomfortable. So we get onto that first bit there. We're talking about information and entertainment. You know, we live in one of the most informed ages in human history. If a man wants guidance today, it's everywhere. There's podcasts, there's books, there's courses, there's systems. You can learn about fitness, you can learn about money, discipline, relationships, everything, all before breakfast. And as a result, you would think that men should be more squared away than ever, but actually this is seldom the case. And a lot of us are pouring our time into entertainment and into things like YouTube, where many years ago, actually much of this energy would have been poured into our friends. And I don't know whether it's cart before the horse or which way round it's going, but what I think we're finding as brotherhood disappears, we're trying to replace it with information, knowledge, and entertainment, and we think that that is sufficient. You know, we're reading more, we're listening to more podcasts, and we're optimizing our routines, and we're sharpening the tools. But the crucial thing is we're doing it alone. And yes, I agree that information and all the stuff that we pick up, it can sharpen a man. But actually, what I want to argue today is it's brotherhood that steadies him. And something really odd is happening. And I think if we look around, I think guys are being hollowed out. It's not that the guys or men that we're collapsing dramatically, but there's definitely a slow erosion when we look around, especially the workplace. We see how, you know, this remote working that many of us do, it's quite isolating. And so we maybe respond through entertaining ourselves, and that numbs us. A lot of guys are hooked into porn, and that damages intimacy with our partners and wives. And then there is the online, incessant, noisy online debate, which takes away loyalty that we maybe once had to real people in real life. And it's destroying and changing how men respond and how men act. And in some ways, it's taking a lot from us. Some of you may raise an objection then to me, and you'll be saying, look, I'm busy, but I have a wife or I have a partner. Isn't that enough? And I would say to you, no. Female partnership, of course, is good. A wife is a gift, it says so in the Bible, and it's not good for man to be alone. But she is not your brother. Because if you said that she was, that would be a category mistake. She is your wife. So she's not your friend. And there are things that men carry that only another man can understand. And things like that's the pressure to perform, the fear of inadequacy, and that quiet shame of weakness. Now, your wife, she can love you deeply, but she can never fully experience that gnawing burden of what it is to be a man and to carry what you carry. Men learn something very slowly. Certainly it took me a long number of years to realize and to understand this, but women are natural amplifiers. And I'm going to explain what I mean by this. And this is not an insult. It is a design feature and not a bug. Women take what comes into their emotional space and they multiply it. Give them a small plant and it becomes a garden. Give them a handful of ingredients and they'll turn it into a beautiful meal. Give them a seed 9 months later and you'll get a baby. But they're really good at amplifying emotions also. An example of this could be like if you come into your home and you're carrying some strong emotion like frustration, anger, or whatever it is, you will have noticed that it rarely stays small. That irritation grows, the tension spreads. Suddenly the whole house feels heavier. You know, you were hoping to come into the house and it would all calm down, but somehow it all gets amplified. And it's not that your wife is trying to cause any trouble, but that's just how the emotional ecosystem works. So that raises a question I think many men never ask. So how actually then, if we can't necessarily share these things, these problems directly with our wives, or at least our unprocessed problems, how can we deal with them? Because if the only place you try and process it is inside your marriage, you're asking for it to carry a weight that it was never designed to do. And so I think a man needs what I would call containment. I think he needs space to be able to think, maybe time to walk it out and mull it over in his mind, time to write. That's massive into writing as a means of processing. But importantly as well, you should wrestle other problems out, or problems that you have with other guys. Because as we know, iron sharpens iron. And the steadier a man becomes, the better a leader he becomes at home. So I think this means something rather surprising and counterintuitive maybe in our modern age, but male friendship, especially if you can work things through with friends, that actually protects a marriage. Many women don't understand this, and a lot of them will go out of their way to cut a man off from his male friends, and the pressure to abandon your friends can actually be quite subtle. And I don't fully know the answer to this, but I believe that it links to some sort of anxiety, attachment disorder, and women fear disconnection. And the difficulty is this: when a man slowly withdraws from his friends and his brothers to keep the peace, he loses something very valuable that a wife can never fully replace, because a wife cannot carry the full weight of a man's emotional world. And in fact, she was never designed to. And as I say, male friendship is a net benefit to a marriage, and a woman who tries to limit this is going to cause problems down the road. So guys, if you have some solid friends, fight to keep those bonds alive and active. So I want you maybe to imagine a scene with me, two men, or maybe in a bar or whatever, they're playing pool. And they're getting a bit of connection, and one starts opening up to the other, and he might say, "Do you know, I'm really struggling with something." What's the first thing the other bloke's going to do? He's going to turn around and say, "Here, Billy, this is what you need to do." Because men, we move to solutions almost immediately, because for us, solutions matter. That's how we deal with life. We see a problem, find, fix and strike. We go in and we deal with it. We want movement. I think that's part of who we are. But I think whenever advice comes too quickly, something important gets skipped, and that is understanding. And I've learned a surprisingly simple lesson since I took up counselling, the counselling practice. And it was something that I suppose I understood it, but I never really practiced it in my own life. And it's reflecting back to the other person what you're hearing. And you could say simple things like, "Man, that sounds tough," or "So you're feeling trapped," or like, "Did I get that right whenever you said?" What you're going to find in 50% of the times, whenever you try and reflect back, say back to the guy what you heard, I would say about 50% of the times, he's going to turn around, no, that's not quite what I mean. And he will re-speak it in order to make it clearer to you. But the key thing is, reflect back to the guy what you're hearing, then shut up. Let him rework it or say it again in different words. You actually have to have the confidence to just shut up. Don't always have to fill the space with noise. And the reason I say that this is important, because I think a lot of guys know that other fellas have never really given them time to let them be fully understood before maybe we move in straight away with the answer, or we move in to correct them. So I think you will find that if advice comes too quickly and it's too trite, a lot of guys will just close up. And if this happens often enough, your friends are going to stop speaking about some of the deeper issues that they're wrestling with. And I think this then is how loneliness grows, even whenever we have friends around us. So remember, presence comes first, then understanding, and only after you've got that can any sharpening of iron begin. And I think this is a serious issue, because men are becoming increasingly alone. We are ending ourselves at an unprecedented rate. Churches, they're struggling to keep men, and work is pulling guys into narrower and narrower lanes. And so many of our friendships are thinning out over time, particularly because we're busy and there's the domestic demands and there's so much going on in our lives. And then culture tells us this message: be independent, be self-sufficient, stand on your own 2 feet. And this all sounds strong. but it's not, and historically, it's not how men would have worked together, because in the past, we traveled together, we worked together, we fought alongside each other. Even look at the Bible and Jesus' ministry. Whenever he sent his disciples out, he sent them out 2 by 2. So a man alone becomes very vulnerable and becomes easy pickings. And the weakening of men, this weakening, it doesn't actually happen dramatically. It appears almost as a drift. And if you don't have other guys in your life, you're going to push yourself less. You're going to tolerate habits that you once resisted, and your emotional range is going to narrow quite significantly. Now, nothing immediately in the outward appears like it is collapsing, but inside you, day by day, if you don't have friends around, there's going to be stuff dying inside you, and that's not a good place to be in. So I want to leave you now. Let's bring this into land, and I want to just kind of remind us of the insights that we're talking about here. More knowledge and entertainment is not going to fix any loneliness that you feel. And marriage cannot replace brotherhood. And any advice that you give a guy without presence does not open up and does not forge those deeper bonds that we hope to have with our friends. So I think even if you understand this, it doesn't automatically give you brotherhood. That will still require action on your part. But what I would encourage you to do is, if you have a guy who's reasonably close to you, name him and get him into one decent, honest conversation. Offer him something real and ask for something real of him. And if that friendship grows, make it more explicit. You can even ask him the question, if I would call you at 2 o'clock in the morning, will you show up? And when he replies that he will, you be ready to reply to him, brother, I'll do the same for you. So if you enjoy what we're doing here, please give us a thumbs up. A subscription would be nice as well. But most importantly, please leave a comment and tell me if any of this landed with you. Catch you in the next one.